Welcome back, guys, to the Clinical Hour podcast. I'm your host again, Shamar Linton, and with me is my team, of course, Fitz Joseph and Brenda Roach. Now, we would have spoken about stress last week, and we had a very healthy discussion on that, covering a lot of things on stress. But this week, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be talking about the common entrance. Not only the common entrance, but the anxiety, the test anxiety that's attached or associated with the common entrance as we get closer to the date, which is sometime early in May. But before we get into the bulk of the discussion, we just like to take some time here to pause and highlight a particular thing, a venture within the mental health area, international venture, I should say. And Brenda is going to give us a little more on that.
Yes, Shamar. So the venture that Shamar was talking about is between Oprah Winfrey and Prince Harry.
Yeah.
So the two of them are getting together. They're creating a documentary about mental health to try to, I guess, help people to have more honest conversations with themselves about what they're experiencing and what they are feeling, and to give people an outlet. So with Prince Harry, a lot of his focus is on mental health and marrying it with fitness.
Yeah.
And he seems to think that marrying the two of those together helps to make a good leader, a strong leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with Oprah, she supports that idea because she is looking at how people cope, how people experience different things, situations in their lives, and trying to bring more, I guess, realistic conversation to the topics of mental health.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing they're doing, being that they're two icons, within their different rights and so on, but they're able to push forward the topic and the agenda of mental health, because we know even though the stigma is decreasing, there's still a lot of stigma attached to the area of mental health. So I think what they're doing is beautiful, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us. I am sure it's going to be good, because Oprah is always a part of good productions.
It's true.
And I don't think the Prince would do anything shabby, so I think they're going to be great where this is concerned. So we just wanted to highlight that and keep you abreast with certain things that are taking place within the world around us. Now we're going to get into the discussion for today, which is the common entrance, the exam that the entry-level exam to the secondary schools that the children have to undergo this coming month early. And there has been a debate over this topic for quite some time. Over the years coming up, I've heard people talking about it, different things associated with it. It becomes this big thing, this big machine, to the point where it's having media coverage each year as the children prepare themselves for the common entrance exam. And it's something that I think that causes a stir to a point that people get a bit anxious. Parents, teachers, children alike, they get anxious as the time draws closer, because there's a lot of preparation that goes into this particular examination. So yeah, I find it's a good topic that we could discuss today.
True. And saying that it is not something that's just pertaining to Barbados. We see the other islands in Caribbean dealing with the same issue. But we also notice that even in the UK, they have the common entrance as well. And what was interesting in looking at this topic was that they have 11 plus as we have it, but they also have in certain parts where they do it at 13. And people have been complaining that even at 13 that children are not prepared to undertake such an exam. So, I find it very interesting.
Yes, Fitz, I do agree. I like how you spoke about the UK and how they still have a common entrance, and that it can be sat at, I think you said from as early as 10, right?
Yeah.
10 and then and as late as 13.
Yeah.
When I was doing some reading, some research on the topic, I was looking at the different territories within the Caribbean, and I think Shamar, you and I were having a discussion before we started the show, and we were looking at Jamaica and Trinidad, and the strides that they have been trying to make in terms of the common entrance. I think all of us have, I guess, a similar standardized test, even though we may be calling it different names. Because Barbados, we still call it the common entrance, which was passed down from Britain. Jamaica now, I know they had the GSAT, and which was, oh God, I gotta read it because I can't remember exactly what it's called, the grade 6 achievement examination, right? And then I think that changed to the PEP, which is the primary exit profile, and that was trying to take into account strengths and weaknesses of a child as well as the academics, right? Which I think is a good step in the right direction, because then it encompasses not just, you know, the maths and the English, but it also looks at what else can this child do, you know. So it's like a profile of a child's educational history, I guess, within the primary school.
So with this, we would have mentioned the territories that have these particular exams. You know, all might not be measuring the same things. They're different, you know. Some have decided to stick to their guns and have the original format, you know, places like Barbados. But, you know, with these types of tests also, there are pros and cons associated with them. And I believe this is a part of the conversation. We should focus a bit on these pros and cons and dissect them a bit.
I agree. So if we're looking at some of the pros with the common entrance, we can probably look at the fact that it measures abilities. I think students need to know what they are capable of doing. So measuring your abilities and your aptitude in the two areas that it does test, that's a pro in this instance.
In addition to that, it also provides a benchmark for, you know, for testing in terms of the level that the students are at the particular stage in their lives, so that, you know, you can have that measurement in terms of the students' performance and ability. You know, so and testing is a part of life. You know, it's something that we may never get away from. So it does provide that benchmark. Yeah,
it helps to do that. It helps to get the children to understand that, this is a process of life. This is something that you're gonna have to go through, and it's something that, as a society, I don't see us getting away from it anytime soon. So it is a pro to get them to understand from an early age, to prepare them from an early age. These are the types of tests that you will have in the future, you know, going forward in the educational system.
Yes.
Yeah, but the other aspect of it is the cons. Here it is, students are doing this test, and then based on their performance, you're lumping them into various schools. And because they're coming from over 80-something primary schools,
wow, that's a lot,
and going to 20-something government secondary schools, you know, it means therefore that the classrooms are big, especially for those students who are having challenges. And looking at it from a mental health perspective, the greater the challenge, you know, the smaller the grouping should be in terms of those students. So, you know, it provides a challenge for those students and teachers in those kind of school settings.
Another con that we can possibly look at when it comes to the common entrance as well is the fact that it limits a child's capabilities. In terms of only testing for maths and English doesn't fully, it's not a holistic approach to looking at exactly what a child can do. So a child can be good in maybe technical areas, technical skills. However, when you test for just maths and English, that doesn't encompass technical skills, vocational skills, those types of things.
Because you never know. We could have the next Picasso on hand, and we don't measure for those types of things. It's so true. Leaving that out has that child, you know, at a disadvantage,
yeah.
you know. And there's also the great one, the good school versus bad school. And this within itself is a debate within itself. Over the years, I've heard people go like, oh, I go to this particular school, so, you know, that makes me this. And then a child go like, oh, well, I only went to. And you can see how they feel about themselves through speaking about the school they attended at the secondary school level. And it seems like it's something that lasts throughout, you know, a large part of their life. As in, if they're thinking about it that way, as in there's a good school, there's a bad school, I went to a bad school, so I have labeled myself the way society has labeled me. Or I went to a good school, so everything is supposed to fall into place in my life because I went to a good school. So then there it comes this sense of entitlement due to I went to this school, and then this type of chip on your shoulder because they went to a bad school. So it's a thing that has come down, has passed down for generations and generations to come, because their parents and parents before that were discussing these things. And then to me, that is something that brings a lot of pressure, because some parents would have, okay, I want my child to go to this school because there's a legacy. I went to this school, my father went to this school,
So
and
that's
his
the
father
school you're
before
going
him
to.
went to this school. So you need to complete this. You need to be the next generation that goes to this school. And if you don't, you're going to be a disappointment. They might not outright say that, but it's this silent sense of, I am disappointed because you were supposed to be here and now you're here and you have just messed up the entire thing. Now the legacy has ended. And that's a major thing, because it plays into the psyche of the child and how they feel about themselves, in terms of it can attack their self-esteem and how their self-concept, how they see themselves, as in, I am not supposed to be a part of this segment of society, I belong here. So they start to place themselves in boxes because it's something that has been done for them. They've seen it done to other people before, so it's like, okay, well, I didn't meet the mark here, so I'm gonna place myself here in this box. And as I said, you start to see it coming out in their behavior and different aspects of that due to this concept, because it's a concept, it's something that has been developed where there's a good school and there's a bad school. And it's a very nuanced conversation, because like some teachers believe it, and parents believe it, some children believe it. So once people start like feeding into this concept that has been created, it gives life to it, and then there are feelings that are going to be attached for the life that it has been given. So that's something really difficult to process, seeing it as a young child, and then coming up as a young gentleman and seeing it still existing among us, where the pressure, because quite recently there was a situation that took place at AgroFest, and something came out of it where, you know, good school, bad school conversation was had, and I am like, we're still doing this, we're still continuing this. I don't understand.
It's true. So I was gonna ask you, is it really still just a concept? Because it's something that everybody has bought into, really, when you look at it. Society on the whole. And I don't know if because each school in Barbados does not teach the same thing.
Yeah.
So maybe that is helping to feed that concept of good school versus bad school. If you go to a bad school, you may not get the physics and the chemistry and all those sciences. Exactly. You're going to get something completely different. So maybe that is what is feeding that idea as well.
But when we look at this whole aspect of good school, bad school, is it really necessary? Because then when students leave the secondary schools and they go to university,
everybody ends up in the same spot.
They sit in the same classroom. You know, despite the school that they came from, you know, they sit in the same classroom, they pursue the same subjects. And, you know, I've seen cases where students who have left what we call newer secondary schools left with 9 and 11 CXCs. and students who have been to the older secondary schools, which are considered the good schools, come up with what they went in, birth from baptism. You know, so you know, is it really, you know, really a true measurement, you know, in terms of schools? Because you going back to talking about the pros and cons of these schools, children going to these schools, as you would have highlighted earlier, maybe are performing, they got the marks for the school, but then based on the exam, was it really measuring their true ability?
Yeah.
And then they go into school and then cannot perform at the level that's required of them in the school. You know, so here they got the marks for the school, but their ability is below what the school is demanding of them.
Yeah. And that goes into a larger conversation now, where we are starting to train children for the test, to just be good enough to pass a test.
Yeah.
And then that cripples them in terms of thinking critically. There's no thought to things, you know. There's more so, I need to regurgitate this. So I need to just memorize, not learn the concept, but just memorize enough so I can pass the test and have a good grade. So it's not about what the grade stands for anymore. So if I get an A, it's I got an A. It's not what the A stands for, which means that you have understood the larger concepts. You've understood the majority of the concepts in terms of this subject area. You've mastered them enough that you get a grade that is an A. Rather, it's no, I just want the A, not what it stands for. I want the A. So it's just the symbol now has lost meaning. So then we have people now going out into the wider world, to the working force, and they're not equipped with the skills because they were only able to pass tests. And we have shifted education and made it about tests and examinations, whereas our focus should be on learning and how the children learn, how they learn in their, because they're different particular styles. And we talked about earlier when we talked about disadvantaging children because of we're only measuring certain things. So multiple intelligence, like Howard Gardner, when he came across with the concept of multiple intelligences in terms of there are areas where people are good. It might not be reading, writing, arithmetic, but like the vocational areas, that's not an area that we should diminish or not pay attention to because, you know, is something we don't value, and unvaluing it in a sense causes problems within society because we're limiting the reach of society by saying, okay, only people that can do this and this we value in society. So then when you start to build those barriers, now the rest of people who can't do this and that, they're gonna feel as though they're being discriminated against. And there's a segregation line that's being drawn. It's not one that's physical, one that you can see, but you can feel it. You can feel there are different segments of society who feel a particular way, and it stems from education, coming out of the education system where we have taught more than one thing, as in you can achieve and you could do this, but only if you are in this particular area. So there's more than one lesson being taught there, so to speak. And I think we need to be conscious of the message we're sending to our young people when we are undervaluing the abilities and gifts that they have and that they possess. When we have these particular tests, these styles of tests, these standardized tests that only can show so much, and it pigeonholes that person.
But I noticed you said that you don't really see it, but I think that you can to a certain extent. I guess you notice that we only look at the vocational skills when a child was not really a child anymore. You finish when you realize that a child has not completed maybe up to CXC secondary school level. Is when we then start to look at vocational skills. Yes, it's a second-hand thing. So it's not something that's explored, like you said, up front. First choice. So I think that's where we can possibly look to see if that's something that can be explored more early on.
Yeah.
In a child's life, and I guess too, looking at when you were saying different types of learning, so looking at the learning styles of a child. Everybody is not the same, so some people are visual learners, and they learn through maybe pictures or drawing or art, and all of these methods of learning are useful, they're beneficial in some way, and that may help a child to even get through the same maths and the English, but doing it in a different way, right? The format of the teaching, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the area that I find we need to pay closer attention to, because it's only when we actually see it, like the vocational skills is only when we see it that we go like, oh yes, this is great, when it's in its finished state, when it's done. But in terms of providing facilities and areas where we go like, okay, we want to see it from beginning, we're gonna make sure that you're the best at this from the beginning.
Exactly.
It's like we have to see the exceptional talent first to be able to place value on it, you know.
So some other learning styles that children may possess along with the visual, there's the auditory. Children may learn best by listening to things, listening to music, listening to word programs, whatever it is that they like to listen to. Audiobooks, exactly. So auditory. Then there's also the reading or writing. Some children love books. I was one. I love books. Not you so much, Shamar.
Okay. Maybe not, but
okay. So there's reading, and then another one is hands-on or kinesthetics.
Yeah,
I think I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Okay, right. So children that learn best by actually doing. So getting the hands dirty, so to speak, and getting in there and actually learning that way as well.
Yeah, I think I grew to that one. I don't really like the hands-on approach, manual labor. I think that's really not up my alley, but I'll do it if I have to.
Okay.
But the different learning styles, what can happen in having to do a test that's like one particular way, and it affects how you learn, because you can't let's say go about the test in the particular way which you learn, cause the anxiety because you're feeling as though I can't, I'm not able to do it because I'm not strong in this area. And just to give you guys a bit of working definition on anxiety, test anxiety, it's like performance anxiety, because having to undergo, let's say, a test that's stressful, because these tests are very stressful, y'all, very stressful, and the fear of underperforming could be something that attacks your self-esteem, because not only do you fear you might underperform in this particular exam, you may feel as though if I don't do well, that means I might not do well in other things, and you start to put it on other things, although it hasn't happened. That kind of, those thoughts get into your mind, and you start to get anxious and get worried because the uncertainty that's attached. And you can also see this in little children as well, but with little children you could see it coming through, let's say, their parent, in terms of how their parent perceives these tests and performing on these tests. And if they weren't able to, let's say the child wasn't able to perform up to the standard of the parent, and the parent is disappointed, and you can see that disappointment reflected in the child, because then the child is saying, I didn't do well, mommy and daddy are not proud of me, they're disappointed in me, so I'm disappointed in myself. And now their self-esteem is now impacted due to the perception or how their parents view things. So it could happen like that, and it's a very real thing, because some people don't really pay attention to performance anxiety, but it's something that a lot of us are faced with. When we have presentations to do, that's a form of a test too. I remember in university doing presentations, and I'm up there sweating, and I am just going like, please finish. No, because I'm anxious and worried that I might say the wrong thing, or this doesn't fit there. And maybe in your job, having certain things to do, and you're anxious, so your performance now comes into question, and you're anxious because of it. So it's something that in different spheres and facets of life we all are faced with, and I think it's something we could work through, something we can deal with.
And you mentioned there, some of the symptoms, being able to identify when it's really happening.
Yeah.
And that's important, so that you know what is happening and how then you can look at ways to address it.
Yeah.
And there's the physical aspect where you have the sweating, you have nausea, maybe even diarrhea, vomiting, headaches.
Episode 2 but still on there.
But then there's the emotional symptoms, feelings like anger, fear, sometimes there's disappointment.
Yeah.
Where that person, as you spoke earlier, where the person feels disappointed in themselves, and even though the parent is telling them that they're doing well, that they still feel that they have not measured up.
Yeah.
But then the cognitive aspect where the person freezes, and although they know the subject, they just can't
perform.
Remember, they can't perform, they can't, say. So, sometimes it can be so bad where the person can't even speak because they are so tense. It's almost like their brain actually shuts down.
Yeah, it's slowing. The process is slowing down. But then where you mentioned their anger, like the anger in there, I'm thinking, sometimes that could be associated with, like, you're mad that you can't get it done. You're mad and you're thinking, I can't get this done, and I'm so angry that I can't do it. And people might look at me funny because this person is doing it, that person is doing it, and me, I can't do it. And some people avoid,
That's what I was just about to say, the procrastinating.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can, you know that you feel that you can't get this thing done, and so you do everything that you can outside of coming into actually sitting down and focusing and trying to work on whatever it is you have to work on. And some parents might say, okay, my child is outside doing so many different things. They may be outside playing, and I'm calling them in to come and do some work, and they're not coming, and not realizing that this may be actually a result of the anxiety.
But the other aspect of the anger is that not that the person can't get it done, is that the person knows it, but then when it comes to actually doing it, they get angry because at that point they freeze. They're they're shut down.
Yeah.
So they're angry that the fact that they know the work, they have the ability. Yeah. But when it comes to time to perform, they are unable to perform the task.
Yeah, that is. I'm really thinking about it because I'm replaying times for me, like when Fitz said that. In terms, that has happened to me when I've gone like, okay, I know what I'm doing here, and then when it comes time to rise to the occasion, it's like, freeze. And then afterward, when you calm yourself down, or after it's all said and done, because you might not be able to calm yourself down in that present state, but after it's all said and done, you start talking to yourself and you start saying, well, I could have done that. Like, I know what I was doing, and like what is happening to me. Like I have no control over this situation. As soon as I'm faced with these types of things, I go into shutdown mode. I go into, I can't do this. Let's just pull back. And then like, okay, or maybe you start, and then one mistake happens, and it just spirals out of control, and the anxiety is just pushed to the forefront, and you just freeze and lock off, and that's it. And
that's where sometimes when we look at, in the education system, where sometimes we see students dropping out. Yeah. It's because, this anxiety, it becomes too much for them. And they then try to avoid having to do tests. So instead of going to school, where, there's tests, they stay home. They, find some other avenue, some other diversion. So they may even leave home in uniform, but never get to school.
Get to school. Yeah, there's that one. Which means that we should look for ways where we can start measuring more abilities and giving people more things that they can do, more options, where school is concerned. And when I say more options, I mean actually paying attention, not just, okay, well, I'm putting it there so you can't say it wasn't there, but actually caring about them and make sure that they're nurtured and they come up in this. Yeah, I find that, they, should really actually give it some more attention, because I know they are. They have the programs in the schools, but I think they should give it a little more attention and not have it as a secondary thing, like we said earlier. Have it to be on par with the other things, because people are tech is the next place we're going. So going up that alley. But to pair with that, there also, I think,
some useful strategies.
Right, Brenda, you're on point.
Yes, some useful strategies that you can maybe utilize. Number one, eat on the day of the exam.
Yeah.
Because as I said, your brain needs fuel for you to function effectively. Make sure you try to avoid these sugary foods, these sugary drinks. Drink water, but again, watch the water content, because you have to look and be sure to avoid having to get up to go to the bathroom frequently.
The bathroom breaks,
yes,
cut into time.
Yes, especially when you're in the exam. So if you minimize that, so that you wouldn't have to be thinking about it or worrying about, hey, I have to get up and go to the bathroom, therefore that minimizes the time that I have to actually finish writing my exam. So don't forget to eat and drink. Another thing is, make sure you get plenty of rest.
Essential.
Sleep is essential, yes, to performance. Is linked very closely to performance.
Yeah.
So making sure that you get a good night's rest the night before. I know that some children work better with cramming. That's something that some children do get accustomed to. But maybe trying to make sure that you cut that out as much as possible and get as much rest as possible, so that you are more alert and more aware of what's happening around you and to you during the exam.
The other thing is that in the exam itself, you want to be as relaxed as possible, because we recognize that anxiety can cause the brain to shut down. You want to be clear, and you want to avoid the confusion, and you want to avoid that hindrance. So you want to, a couple of techniques that you can practice is deep breathing and visualization, where you can close your eyes and think of something that you really enjoy to help you relax.
Yeah.
But in terms of deep breathing, I just want to show a practical example of how you can do that. You can use your hand, you put it above the table or under the table, and you can, as you breathe in, you gradually come up the outside of your finger, and as you go down the inside of the finger, you breathe out. Breathe in and out.
So it's like tracing
as you trace the fingers in and out. In and out.
Yeah.
In and out. And as you do that, it helps to calm you. It helps you to release that tension, that anxiety, and bring your mind to a stable state in which you can focus on that which is before. Parents, you can encourage your children to do it as well. Practice with them, so that when they go into the exam, that they can manage it and they know exactly what they're doing, so that they are clear-minded and that they can handle the exam as strong, capable as they are known to be able to do so.
Okay. And the thing is, even before that, like the pregame before exam and exam day, I think maybe talking to your kids as well. Parents, talk to your children, have that honest conversation with them. Let them, because as we said earlier, children, some of them, how they value or their self-esteem is attached to how their parents perceive certain things. So have that conversation with them, as in let your child know it's not the end of the world. Maybe if you score 60 or whatnot on the particular exam, life will continue. So have the discussion so that it can comfort them, to know that you won't be disappointed, because you don't want them to go in to the exam with all of that on their mind, thinking, I need to make my parents proud, I need to do this, I need to do that, and it will take away from their focus on the actual test that they're taking. So to talk to them before, to have them to understand that you will still feel the same way about them, you know, regardless of what they do on the exam, to reassure them, to give them that support. And I believe that's something that helps, because hearing it coming from a parent, somebody that the child values and looks up to, it will help to kind of cushion, you know, help remove some of that anxiety that might be there, you know, beforehand, so that when they come out the room, they're not gonna be, you know, all dejected if they felt like they did bad. But you know what, mom, dad, I gave it my best shot, and like you said, this is not, you know, the end of my journey. There's so much more for me to do, and so on. So I think that's a good conversation to have with your children, so that they know that you're there supporting them, you know, all the way through the entire process, of the examinations and so on. So we would have covered a number of things here, but we're gonna take a break, and when we take a break, we're gonna come back for our last segment, which would be the listeners' letters. We didn't forget you guys, and yes, there was some people who wrote in, and we selected a letter from the batch that we had for last week's episode, that we're gonna be reading one of them now. So when we come back, we're gonna deal with that. Welcome back, guys, to the Clinical Hour. And like I said, this segment we're going to be dealing with the listeners' letters. And there's this one particular letter that Brenda got in our email, the Clinical Hour podcast at gmail.com. Don't forget to send in some letters, guys. And you go, Brenda. You
Okay,
go.
this letter was from a lady, and she said, "Hi, I really enjoyed the segment that you guys shared on stress. I'm a single mother of 3 kids, having to deal with the stress of work, not really having much family support, and the fact that I have to dish out more money for bus fare is really starting to get to me. I find that I am more irritable and tend to snap at my kids more than I used to. Do you have any advice as to how I can deal with this situation?" So I think I can start the ball rolling here by saying, maybe you can start to look at how your body is feeling when you start to want to snap at your kids or getting irritable. So maybe see what's happening with you. Are you sweating more? Are you getting headaches? Are you feeling, maybe you might be feeling nauseous too. Are you tired? See what you are experiencing within yourself first. I think that can be the first step that you can look at.
And what that signifying though is that there's a need for a timeout to pull back from the situation and to be able to regain some measure of stability. So it means that you might need to, you know, bring yourself to a calm level by maybe sitting in a chair, closing your eyes, doing some visualization or something that you really enjoy, or combining that with deep breathing. Really take some deep breaths and release them slowly through your mouth so that it helps to calm you. Or in addition to that, you can do some muscle relaxation where you tense your muscles with your hands and gradually release them so that you've helped that tenseness to go from your body. But timeout is important.
Yeah.
You mentioned about family, and there's also that need to, your family may not have much family support, but whatever family support that you have, you need to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And to utilize that to help you to, you know, find some way to gain stability and to deal with the situation. We also know that in these days, you know, finances is tight. And you might not have any more money coming in, but sometimes you may need to revisit your budget, revisit your finances, and see how best you can maximize the amount that you have. You know, there might not be a whole lot more, but how organizing it may help you to utilize it better.
Yeah, and to add to the points that you guys made, in terms of she could, talk to her kids also, allow them to know mom needs to, have a little time out or a little time to herself to catch herself before dealing with the situation, because if you can feel, because one thing that I like is that she was feeling it. She felt it coming on, like, I am about to snap, or I'm snapping at these children. So she was able to identify that. So then when she starts to feel it coming on, to try to, in a good way or a nice way, excuse herself so that she can have some, time to relax a bit and gather herself. Because yes, she's a mother, but she's also a human being. So she will need some time for herself, to recalibrate, to catch herself and reposition herself mentally, so she'll be able to focus and to deal with the children in an appropriate manner, rather than the manner with which she's saying that she's dealing with them at this point. And as Fitz said, the support, seeing if she can capitalize on the family support, because it may be little, but whatever little it is, it can do something for you. It can do something for you and help you to cope with the situation you're dealing with. Because she's writing in, and a lot of people are faced with these kind of issues, and they need that type of support to kind of cushion the blow, and with this rise in bus fares, it's gonna seem as though it might, you can't get through it. But if you utilize the resources you have, you may be able to see that there could be a change or a more positive vibe coming around when you utilize those types of outlets to kind of relax yourself, along with the muscle relaxers that exercises that Fix would have incorporated to help her, ease the pressure. And compiling all of these together will help, to remedy the situation that she's faced with. So thank you for writing in. I hope that the feedback we gave you was appropriate, and it would have been able to help you in some kind of way as you deal with, facing the challenges of life. Because, we all have various challenges that we have to face with. So I'm hoping that, what we did there would have been able to help you a bit. Now that brings us basically to the close of our episode this week here at the Clinical Hour podcast. We've had a very healthy discussion on today's episode, and what we're coming away with is, though there are pros and cons to the common entrance exam, it's something that's going to be here for a very long time, maybe even to stay. So with that in mind, I think it's best that we prepare our children to undergo such tests and such exams, especially the ones who are having a harder time dealing with the pressure of these particular exams and the anxiety that's associated with the exams. There were some takeaways that we would have given you. Remember to put them into practice, to utilize them, because they can come in very handy and very helpful for you guys in the near future. Remember, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback on the episode, the things that you like, things that you want to further the conversation on, and we'd like for you to comment and share with your friends, share with your family. Also, we want some more listeners' letters. We want to be able to help as many people as we can. But let me just say, remember, this is not actual therapy. So if it is that you feel as though you need help and you need support, seek support from a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Just seek help so you will be able to make it through the things that you're dealing with, because you don't have to go through it alone. So Until next time, this is the Clinical Hour.